Hi, Jennifer Stewart here. I'm so excited to have with me today Dana Obelman, and she is a phenomenal expert in getting your kids to be able to sleep. So, Dana began her private practice in Vancouver, Canada in 2003. So, she's been working with this for a while now. After struggling with her own child's sleep, she drew on her dual degrees in psychology and education to create the Sleep Sense program, a complete resource for parents, which has sold almost 100,000 copies in more than 30 countries. That's a lot. Since writing the Sleep Sense program, she's authored an additional 4 books on specific parenting challenges. And she has over 50,000 people following her on Facebook and Twitter and YouTube. And on YouTube, she's had over 1 million views already. So Dana is a highly sought after expert here. She's been featured at major parenting trade shows, and she's a frequent guest on radio and television programs. Her work has been highlighted on CNN, Today's Parent, WebMD, The Washington Post, and many other prominent avenues. So after interviewing Arianna Huffington in May of 2016, she was asked to become a regular contributing writer for the Huffington Post. She has traveled and trained people globally all around on her Sleep Sense system, and I'm excited to have her here today. Today she lives in Florida with her husband and 3 kids, where she continues to work and educate on empowering families to get healthy sleep habits. And I know any mom that's had little kids is thankful for that. So anyway, hi Dana, how are you today? Glad to have you.
Hi, I'm doing great, thanks. How are you?
I am doing well. So it's quite a list of accomplishments there. Thank you for all your work that you do to helping families. So I remember when my kids were tiny, they're a little bit older now. I have 3 as well. That getting rest anytime was like such a gift, right? So how do you tell moms to begin to help their little ones sleep a little better? How do they start?
Well, I love it if they start even before the baby's born, which has been a really exciting thing to watch over the last 10 years or so. I think more people are getting a little bit more curious about their own sleep, and it's become a little bit of a hotter topic in pulp culture, getting sleep. And so more people are starting to at least think about, what do I need to do to lay a really good foundation for my children? So I love it if they come in fresh like that right from day one, because I really believe that you can teach a baby, or you maybe not teach a baby, a newborn, but guide a newborn down the right road to sleeping well. And the heart of the issue is allowing children to find some ways of getting to sleep that are independent of anything external. And that's the sort of crux of the issue, is that if you can just even point them in that direction of at least occasionally figuring out some ways of getting to sleep that don't involve being rocked or fed or bounced around, then a lot of them just naturally gravitate towards becoming a really good independent sleeper right from the start.
Yeah, no, we were definitely guilty of that with our first one. We had one of those exercise balls,
Uh-huh.
and we would have to sit on that and hold her, or put her in a swing. Or anyway, by the time I got to the third, I knew knew better. But yeah, no, definitely, that's very important. So they can begin learning about it before they even have their baby. Is that what you're recommending? So they're prepared for that.
Yeah, just a few. I mean, they don't have to sit down and read endless books about it. We've got a little newborn chapter in the Sleep Sense program that just gives them a little insight into what they should be watching for, and just a little bit of sleep education for the newborn.
Yeah, no, I love that. How important do you think it is for the child to be able to get good rest when they're growing?
Well, we know that babies need to eat in the night, right? I'm never suggesting that we don't feed hungry babies. So having a baby wake up a few times a night, especially in that newborn phase, that's just all part of the deal. But certainly as a baby gets older and starts approaching the first birthday, and somewhere between that 6 and 12 month mark, if they're not getting fairly consolidated nighttime sleep, and I would say either solidly consolidated or maybe just one wake up somewhere in the night, then we know that they're going to be feeling the effects of that in a very similar way to how an adult would be feeling the effects. Their body rhythm is very similar by that age to an adult. So certainly if you're feeling pretty shattered from being up multiple times a night, then you can be sure your baby's feeling it on some level too.
Sure. Yeah, definitely. I would imagine it would affect their growth and their brain development and of course their emotions. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, everybody handles fatigue a little differently. So some babies seemingly are doing just fine, and parents don't really notice any kind of negative consequences to not sleeping well. However, when those same babies do start sleeping better through the night, there's usually an increase in how well the child's doing, even though parents perceived that they were doing well in the first place. It's even better. But other babies are going to be, crankier or a little quicker to impulsivity. They might become a little aggressive with others when they're fatigued. Their attention span is short. Again, all of the same things we feel when we're fatigued. We're adults, so we hopefully can manage our emotions a little bit better. But you can imagine for a child, those are hard to manage feelings in the first place, and then just add fatigue onto them, and it's just really, it's worse for them.
Sure. Yeah. No, I'm sure that there's, just like with people, with adults, that there's kids who are more sensitive to anything than others. And so, yeah, there may be some kids who can run on very little bit of sleep and still seem okay. And then others who are just a wreck. And then the parents are a wreck as well. Do you
Right.
think that kids who develop good sleeping habits when they're babies, teeny tiny, carry that along and can sleep better as they get older then as well?
It's one of my core beliefs. I think that if you teach a baby to sleep well and really honor and respect the need for them to sleep well, then that grows into the toddler years, grows into the school years and beyond. I have teens now, and they are still really pretty amazing sleepers even into the teen years, and we all know what that's like. So I totally agree. And one of the things that we see often in our practice is that, if a baby started out, with some bad habits around sleep, or not that great of a sleeper, then they turn into a toddler who has similar challenges and so on. So people sometimes wait, hoping that this will be some sort of magical day when the child will outgrow these problems. But it's really about habits, and habits die hard. And if you convince yourself you need certain things in order to sleep, it's a rare day that you're just going to give those up, you know,
Yeah.
on your own. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I know. I was thinking about that as I was asking for my three kids. My last one, who had to just, she had to be able to sleep on her own because that's the way it was as
Right.
the third kid, right? But
Uh-huh.
now she can sleep like through a rock concert, I swear. So, yeah, maybe, it maybe since she learned that as a baby,
Uh-huh. Yeah.
definitely moved along with her. So, what do you recommend then for parents, when they get to the time when the kid can get out of their bed and come down and I had a nightmare, right? What do
Uh-huh.
you, how do you recommend parents deal with that kind of a thing?
Right. Well, I think it's just normal and natural to have some fears or to have a nightmare. These things are going to happen. It's just part of being a parent. You'll have to tend to children in the night from time to time. But if it starts to become what I call an attention getting strategy, meaning if I come down to tell you I'm scared, then I get to watch TV with you, or you come cuddle with me in my bed, or I get to sleep in your bed, then those things start showing up more and more often. So it's really important to remain really consistent with your boundaries around your children's sleep, bedtime, and sleep expectations, and just be cautious that you're not actually rewarding these behaviors that you don't really want to see. And and just returning the child to bed. I have a very strict one warning then a consequence philosophy that I use with my own kids and teach to the parents that I work with too, that just really helps the child realize that there's no point in trying to push beyond this, because if I do, there'll be some sort of consequence that they don't really care for.
Sure. Yeah, no, no, definitely. Because I know with a lot of the families I work with, they'll talk to me about, yeah, how their kids are always coming down the hall and they're not sleeping good. And then in the preschool that I have, I see a lot of these kids are coming in and they're yawning all day in class. And it's like, oh, I just wish your parents would help you sleep at night so you're not falling asleep at, by 10 a.m. already. They're already tired. So,
And that's when they should have, I mean, children should have endless energy,
right.
right? That's the one time in our life when we should be sleeping perfectly. We have the biological design to sleep just better than any time in our life.
Right.
And it's sad to me when I see that kids aren't like really optimizing that.
Yeah, no, definitely. I definitely see there's some that it's almost every day that they're tired. Yeah, I wish, yeah, wish I could be able to help them, but hopefully maybe they can come and learn some more things from you, right? So,
Right.
and then aside from for the kids, I mean, how important do you think it is for the mom as well, or the dad, to be able to get that rest?
Well, I think there's a bunch of things that are really important rewards to having children sleeping well. You know, gives parents a little bit of a break in those evening hours. You know, if your kids are fast asleep by 7:30 p.m., that gives you at least a couple of hours to have some me time and to connect with each other as a couple and maybe eat a meal before it goes cold, right? All these things are super important to just keeping your spirit healthy. And then when we look at from a physical standpoint, again, your body is beautifully designed to help out for the short term when you're getting broken sleep. So in those first few months when you have to get up to tend to a hungry baby, your body does everything it can to help you, but that's only going to last for so long. And then your sleep debt's going to accumulate to such a level that most people end up sort of breaking down physically, and they might see it in repeated illness, right? Being really vulnerable to any kind of cold or flu bug, just a general sense of these sort of mild depressive symptoms show up. Again, same thing as children, but we can be quick to anger, we can be very tearful, trouble concentrating and focusing. I mean, sleep is a foundation, right? Without it, it's just like diet and exercise and everything else that keeps you healthy. If you're not getting it, you're going to feel the effects of that on every level.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think that's something that parents can think about then is when they're getting rest and they're helping their child sleep so that they can get rest, then they can be a better parent.
Oh,
Right.
absolutely. Absolutely.
They'll be healthier and they'll have more patience. And I love getting them to bed early at night because I mean, that's the end of the day, right? It's when the kids are going to be cranky, the parents are going to be cranky. And so if you're keeping them awake, then it's probably not going to look very pretty for
No,
anybody.
that's right.
Yeah, no, I love that. That's a great suggestion. And so, what do you think are some of the biggest myths out there regarding kids and sleep? What do you hear a lot? I'm sure you.
Oh, well, I touched on the first one that somehow a child will outgrow their bad sleep habits. I mean, I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but it's pretty rare. And that's something that just kind of lingers and grows with the child as they age. Another one I hear a lot is that if you keep a baby awake all day or skip naps or limit nap time, that somehow they'll start to sleep more solidly through the night. And the truth of that is that you just create a child who becomes completely overtired. And then once overtiredness sets in for everybody, but it's more amplified in a child, it turns into hyperactivity, it turns into sort of just a general sense of being wound up,
Mhm.
and it's very difficult for an overtired child to fall asleep. in a timely manner. And then the sleep they have after the fact is very fragmented or broken because it's very difficult for them to get into a nice rhythm and cycle. So that one's definitely a no-no. Other ones, oh, that it has a lot of people say, well, if I just start feeding solids, right? If I just put like rice cereal in the bottle, then this child will start to magically sleep better through the night. And I mean, beyond the newborn months, food doesn't play a huge role in helping a child sleep well. Um, it's more having a dependency on nursing to sleep or bottle feeding to sleep that becomes the problem. And the food is a nice perk that occurs, but it's more the strategy of using that bottle or breast as a little vehicle into sleep again. So starting solids too early is never a good idea. And it certainly won't help at all with the sleep.
Yeah. And so one of the things you were just talking about, I hear that a lot too about the whole napping thing. Parents are not sure when are you going to get rid of that extra nap? Because they do worry, like if they sleep too much during the day, then they're not going to sleep at night. Or so, do you have any guidance on that? When parents start pulling away naps, how do they know?
Well, I always say it's a choice. So what tends to happen, and it usually shows up somewhere between 2.5 and 3, where the child will nap well, but then bedtime's becoming a big production with lots of game playing or, just playing in the crib for an hour or more at bedtime. So if you notice that you're having some issues with your bedtime, then it becomes a choice. You can either keep the nap. Some moms need that break in the day. They can't imagine life without it, and I get that. So you can keep the nap, but then you need to adjust bedtime to a more appropriate hour, and it would probably look something like 8 or 8:30 for a child who's still napping. Other parents, myself, I fell into this camp where I loved that 7 p.m. I loved the idea that my children were down for the night by 7 p.m. And for me, that was more important than the nap. So I pulled the nap so that I could have them, asleep by 7:05 every night. But it really is, and neither is better or worse. It really becomes a choice on the parents' part. But there does come a time where you can't have both. It's just not enough hours in the day to build fatigue to a place where it needs to be for a child to nap well and go to bed at 7.
Sure. Yeah, no, definitely. And then I guess kind of going along with that and that age when things start changing, when and how do you recommend parents making the switch from the crib with where they're contained to
Mm-hmm.
the toddler bed or a big kid bed where they can get out?
No, I know. I love that question because I think most people go too soon.
Okay.
Most people go when they're having another baby, or they think like there's some thing that has to occur at 2 where we have to move babies out of cribs and put them into beds. And there's no rush. I mean, if your child's not trying to leap out of the crib head first, there's no rush to move to that bed. For in my family, we ended up, there was a time in our children's lives where we had 2 cribs for 2 different children because I wasn't ready to move my toddler out of a crib yet and a new baby was on the way. So I would way rather people wait until after a new baby is here and the dust is settled around that, at least 3 months. Then they can think about making that move. And during that time, your newborn's in a bassinet in your room anyway, right? You don't need the crib yet. So just hang on until this toddler has a chance to get used to this new family member and then go for it. But I like to see it no sooner than 2.5. And the closer to 3 that you can get, the easier it goes. They're just so much better able to understand instructions and think through the consequence. And it just tends to go a lot smoother if you hang on to that crib.
Yeah, no, I like that because yeah, if when they're older, then they can understand the rules. Is when you go to bed, you have to stay in your
Yes.
bed. It's not a free for all to play in your room or come running around or
No,
500 glasses of water or whatever it might
that's
be.
right.
Yes, no, definitely. So, and what, I guess the next thing that going along with that too is the whole like potty training thing at night, right? So when they
Mhm.
get to that age and they're potty training during the day, I don't know how do they integrate that then along with that?
Yeah. Well, I always tell parents not to worry too much about the nighttime potty training. That can come months after daytime success, and for some kids, even years after daytime success. So that's really nothing they need to put a lot of pressure around. Where it tends to show up, if it's going to cause some problems, is usually at bedtime. So the child kind of puts two and two together and thinks, oh, the more I come out and tell mommy I have to go to the bathroom or the potty, the more she, jumps up off the couch and comes to tend to me.
Yeah.
And it can become an attention getting strategy because the child sees how important this is to you.
Right.
And they're going to keep coming out to try that one. So I suggest people give what I call the potty pass. So they just take a piece of cardboard and cut a little circle and draw a potty on it or write the word potty on it, and let your child know that they have one chance to use that after bedtime. And once they've used it, there will be no returns to the toilet after that. And I always tell parents, be ready. I mean, you might have called this bluff, and maybe you didn't, right? And there's going to be an accident or some need for you to go in there and fix the situation. But just be ready for that in case it happens. But 9 times out of 10, they're just bluffing, because obviously you've most likely given them a chance to go potty in the routine. I mean, you're keeping an eye on their fluid consumption. So they're just mostly doing it for attention, and once they've used it, that's it. They don't get to try that one again.
Nice, right? And I was reading on your blog, you had written an article about picking your battles, and I think that kind
Right.
of goes along with that. How do you guide a parent to know which battles to stand their ground on and which ones to? All right, we'll let that one go.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you have to ask yourself around any little challenge whether you're in it to win it or you're not, right? There really is with kids no wishy washy about that. There's no real middle ground. So, for example, I had to decide at one point with my kids that it wasn't worth the battle of stopping them from throwing food on the floor, right? Like I wasn't really in it to win it. I was half heartedly in it, and you just can't do that. So I just
Get a
decided I
dog.
don't care, right? I don't care. They're not on carpet, so they're not going to ruin anything. I'm just going to ignore when they do this. And guess what? It maybe it didn't stop completely, but it certainly was minimized just by the sheer fact that I ignored it, right? Like I didn't care. So they didn't do it as much. But when you feel like it's important enough, especially around sleep, I always think sleep should be an absolute non-negotiable. So you've got to be in it, and that's the place where it's really important to stay consistent and clear, and your boundaries should be, bulletproof, and just have to hang on really tight because they're gonna there's definitely going to be testing of waters or challenges, pushback, whatever you want to call it. It's just the nature of children to periodically see what happens if I
Sure.
ask for another story or if I come out to visit you. They're going to test you, and you have to, those are the ones you really have to pass.
Right. Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah. So if you were to give parents kind of one thing to focus on, with, I guess probably for you just be sleeping maybe, but when their kids are little, what would be your one word of advice for,
Whew, one word of advice. Oh my
or,
goodness.
or not one word, but one thing to think about.
Oh, one thing to think about. Well, I'll use what I thought was the best piece of advice that I ever got as a young parent. I took my son to the dentist when he was like about one and a bit, and to get that first checkup. And
Mhm.
I was explaining to the dentist, oh, he just hates to get his teeth brushed, and it's just a fight every night. And I haven't been doing it very, very often because he hates it so much. And I'm telling him this big sad story about how my son won't let me brush his teeth. And he just listened patiently. And then when I was done, he looked at me and said, so what? And I went, oh, So what? Yeah, good point. He's like, so what if he doesn't like it? He has to have his teeth brushed. That's just a non-negotiable. It has to happen. And who cares if he doesn't like it? And I was I was dumbstruck for a minute because it and right then it really clicked into place for me. My job as a parent is not to just like do everything this 1-year-old wants me to do or bend to his every will and whim. My job is to be the parent here. And this has to happen whether he likes it or not. And that really changed how I saw my role. From then on, that yes, I'm going to be fair and I'm going to give choice and I'm going to create situations where I make my children my children understand what their role is and their expectations are and what mine is. I'm going to do it in a fair and loving way, but ultimately there's some things that it's just so what, right? And
Yeah.
you're doing it anyway.
Right. Yeah. No, 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 definitely. I think that's hard as parents all the time because you want to have that good relationship with your child, right? So you're always trying to figure out where's that balance of, all right, I'm going to be the parent. I'm not going to just be their friend. But
Right.
yeah, no, that's challenging. I hear that a lot of times from the parents that I help as well.
But I think one thing to just piggyback on that is that I agree. We absolutely want to have great relationships with our children, but that doesn't mean being their friend, right? That there's a big difference between having a great relationship with your children and trying to be a friend. Uh, that's not your job. And children actually feel much more secure, much more confident when they have parents who they understand the boundaries with, that they have clear expectations laid out for them. It's those kids that never know what to expect, or someday mom's in a good mood and we're best buds and sometimes not. It's when those situations arrive that children start to feel really insecure because they don't know what's what.
Right. No, definitely. So, well, I want to thank you for your time, and I definitely want to let the audience know if they want to get more information
Hmm.
to learn about, getting their kids to sleep. I know so many moms struggle with that. What's the best way to get some more information about your programs?
Well, you can definitely check out the site. It's sleepsense.net. You can also follow me on Facebook. It's Dana Obelman. And we'll do our best to help out. They can email me with questions as well if they want to find out where to start. But
Okay,
I'm happy
great.
to help.
Nice, nice. Thank you so much, Dana. And be sure to check in the email. So Dana will be offering you guys some free information in there. So anyway, well, thank you so much and have a wonderful day. I appreciate your time. And
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you. It's my
so
favorite subject.
I'm so glad that you're helping parents out with this very challenging but important topic. So, all right. Thank you.